Alright, I'm going to show you for this module how to make a leg of mutton sleeve. So a leg of mutton sleeve, the whole sleeve stays really slim, and then once it gets to the sleeve cap it just gets huge and does a lot of gathering at the sleeve cap. You can use the same technique to just do a little puff sleeve at the top. So I'm showing you the extreme version, and then you can dial it back to get something with just a couple gathers at the sleeve cap, or you can just do a full leg of mutton sleeve. If you're going to do a sleeve cap where there's just gathers at the top, you would be only doing this technique between the notches. You wouldn't adjust anything down here. I'm going to end up showing you something that takes a whole bunch of space and starts going down to it'll start affecting down to close to where the elbow begins. Like this area is where the elbow is. So I'm going to put it all up here. Okay, so what we're going to do the leg of mutton sleeve, if you want to see an example of it, go to your book. I'll have the chapters listed at the beginning on the title. But yeah, look for leg of mutton there. And what I'm going to do is we're just going to open this thing up. If I were just doing a puff sleeve, I would really only slash along the seam allowance and bring the seam allowance out. But with the leg of mutton sleeve, we want the whole thing to open up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slash down pretty darn far, and then I'm going to slash over. And I want to make sure that I'm slashing over to the same points. So I'm going to just draw a little line across here just to say, yeah, I'm going to slash to that point. And I'm going to slash to this point. I'm going to hinge that. And what that's going to allow me to do is start opening this sleeve up like this. We're going to be adding height to the sleeve. I can, if I want to add even more height than what's being allowed here, I could do another spot. I'd want to make sure that if I do another one, I'm going to measure down the same distance, so like an inch down there and an inch down here. And it could come from about right here and just hinge right there, so that allows me to open it up even more. Won't really matter that I didn't come to the same cut in here, because what matters is where it hinges. So since I hinged it at the same point, it'll ultimately be the exact same shape over here and here. So we can start opening that up, and then the big thing is that we have to start filling in this space up here that we've opened up. So we're going to grab another sheet of paper. And plop this sleeve down on top of it. Now I am going to tape down this bottom section so that it doesn't move on me. And then I'm going to extend my center line from my sleeve straight up so that I have a way of making sure that I add the same amount on each side. And then let's say I want to increase this sleeve. Well, here's the idea. You have to think about, if this is where my sleeve cap is, and that's fitting the body perfectly, when we add the puff, we have to consider that we're going to add height to the sleeve, and then it's also going to have to come down. So if I want this sleeve cap to go up from where it currently is and stand up an inch, I've got to add an inch in height, and then it's got to come down again. So I'll do another inch for it to come down. And then I can open this sleeve up till it looks like this curve is going to naturally pull in. If I were to extend this curve and extend it over to this other side of the sleeve, that it's naturally going to pull in this point. Is there an exact way of saying, ooh, let's make sure that this fits perfectly? No, not really. But it's all getting gathered, so it doesn't particularly matter. At the end of the day, I think I'm just going to make a mark over here 3 inches and a mark over here 3 inches to have it line up there. And that way I can make sure that I can control making sure that this is the same shape on the front as it is on the back. Once that's generally where I want it, I can tape that down. I'm making sure that this shape down here on the arm is the kind of shape that I want it to be as well. And once I've decided that that's what I want to do to the front, when I match it up on the back, I'm going to try and make sure that I have a similar shape down here on the back as well. But because we didn't add any length here, it changed the shape, but it's the exact same length as it was before. This will allow me to get this huge sleeve cap as a puff. Tape that all down, make it really beautiful, blend all of these sharp edges here that I've hinged at, so grab a curve, blend through there, make sure that the seam allowances are filled back in, fill in all that detail, X out what you don't want. When it's all done, all of this should be really, really beautiful down here and not confusing at all. So clean that up down there, hash out all of the lines down here that aren't needed. This is still my grain line down the middle of that sleeve. Hash out all of these little lines. This was my old underarm seam, my old defining the bottom of the sleeve cap. I really don't need to draw in a new one. If I wanted to, I could, but I don't have to. Once that's done, I'm going to take some variform curve, French curve, whatever. I'm going to make sure, first of all, that as it comes off this new point up above, that it's at least 90 degrees off of here for a short distance. And I'm going to take that curve and make sure it blends nicely in to each of those. So that's, mine's looking like it wants to be at the 5. If I use the exact same kind of spot on the curve, I'm going to end up with a very similar curve on the front and on the back. There may be a little bit of variation, but that's okay. Come in, give yourself your new seam allowance, and we're almost done. Now, this area from the notch down didn't change, and this area down here didn't change. And this is where we want that top notch to be, right at the center. You can get rid of the one that I opened up over here, because that's no longer the center. So here's my notch. I've got these notches. I am going to come back to my old sleeve, and I'm going to measure from the sleeve, the bottom. Oh, I just need to measure from this notch to this notch. If you want to be extra detailed, you can measure to the notch in the middle as well. But find out what that is. Mine's 6 1/4 on here. So this, I'm going to add a bracket from there all the way over to this notch. And all of this is gathers. And I'm just going to say gather to 6 1/4 inches. So that I know that when I attach this into the garment, that's what it's going to gather into. Make sure you come in, you add your grain line. Lots of grain lines have been missing, so make sure your grain line is present. Add your style number, style name. This is a leg O mutton. This would be a sleeve. This is size 8. I need 2 of these of the self fabric, and I can just call that number 1 because I'm not including anything else with it. Cut it all out, make it really pretty. This is how you go about making a leg of mutton sleeve. If I were to do just a little cap sleeve, like a little puff at the top of my sleeve, I wouldn't slash down into this area. I would really only slash to the notches. That's the only thing that I would slash to. To open that up, I would slash down into the notch, not down into the actual part of this main part of the sleeve. But because of how much we're adding up here, we needed to be able to slash down farther so that we could add actual, like, more height into the sleeve. Cool?